The day the aliens came, Jake Miller was drinking bad coffee in the command center of the orbital station Unity. He had been a captain in Earth's space fleet for 15 years. He had seen many strange things in the darkness between planets, but nothing had prepared him for what appeared on his screen that morning. "Sir, we have contacts," said Lieutenant Mike Reeves. His voice was shaking. "Lots of contacts. Coming out of, I don't know what to call it. Some kind of hole in space." Jake put down his coffee and walked to the main window. His heart stopped for a moment. Ships were appearing in the blackness. Not 10 ships. Not 100 ships. Thousands of ships. They were huge, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. They hung in space like metal mountains, blocking out the stars. "Get me a line to Earth Command," Jake said quietly. Now, within an hour, the whole world knew. The aliens had arrived, and they wanted to talk. Dr. Emma Cole arrived on the Unity station the next day. She was the best language expert on Earth. She had spent her whole life studying how people communicate. Now she would try to communicate with beings from another world. She was excited and terrified at the same time. "What do we know about them?" she asked Jake as they walked through the station's metal hallways. "Not much," Jake replied. "They call themselves the Galactic Council. They say they represent over 300 species from across the galaxy. They say they come in peace." Emma noticed something in his voice. "But you don't believe them?" Jake stopped walking. He looked at her with tired eyes. "I've been a soldier my whole life, Doctor. I've learned that when someone has 1,000 guns pointed at your head and tells you they come in peace, you should be careful." The meeting was set for the next morning. The aliens sent a small shuttle to the Unity station. It was beautiful in a strange way, all smooth curves and glowing lights. When it landed in the docking bay, Jake felt his stomach tighten. The door of the shuttle opened with a soft hiss. 3 figures walked out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore long robes of shimmering fabric. The one in front carried a small device that floated beside him. "I am Ambassador Tylan," the lead alien said. His mouth did not move. The floating device translated his thoughts into English. "I bring greetings from the Galactic Council and from High Arbiter Velos, our supreme leader." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Miller. This is Dr. Emma Cole. We welcome you to Unity Station on behalf of the people of Earth." Ambassador Tylan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "How charming. A primitive species with manners. This will be easier than I thought." Emma felt anger rise in her chest at the word primitive, but she kept her face calm. She had dealt with rude people before. She could deal with rude aliens. The negotiations began in the station's conference room. Ambassador Tylan wasted no time. He placed a small crystal on the table. Light shot up from it, forming words and images in the air. "This is the Standard Integration Treaty," Tylan explained. "Every species that joins the Galactic Council signs this document. It grants you protection, technology, and a place in our great civilization. In return, you agree to follow Council law and contribute to the common good." Jake looked at the floating text. It was written in a language he could not read. "We will need a translation, and time to review it." Tylan's large eyes blinked slowly. "A translation? Time?" "Captain, this treaty has been signed by 200 species before you. Most of them signed within the hour. They were grateful for the opportunity." "We are not most species," Emma said firmly. "We need 30 days and a complete translation into English." The alien stared at her for a long moment. Then he made that strange laughing sound again. "Very well. You may have your 30 days. It will change nothing. In the end, you will sign." Everyone signs. After the aliens left, Jake turned to Emma. "What do you think?" Emma was already downloading the treaty into her personal computer. I think something is very wrong here. Did you see his face when I asked for time? He was not just annoyed. He was worried. Can you translate it? Emma nodded. I'll need help from the AI systems back on Earth, but yes, I can translate it. The question is what we'll find when I do. For the next 3 days, Emma did not sleep. She sat in her small room on the station, surrounded by screens and data. Earth's most powerful computers worked beside her, breaking down the alien language piece by piece. The treaty was long, over 4,000 pages when translated. Most of it looked normal at first. Trade agreements, cultural exchange, technology sharing. But Emma was careful. She read every word. And slowly, hidden in the complex language, she began to find the truth. On the third night, she found what she was looking for. It was buried deep in section 847, written in language designed to confuse. But the meaning was clear. Resource allocation rights, population contribution quotas, genetic material collection, permanent debt obligation. Emma's hands were shaking as she read. This was not a partnership treaty. This was not an invitation to join a great civilization. This was a trap. A beautifully written trap that had caught 200 species before them. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. She ran through the dark hallways of the station until she reached Jake's quarters. She pounded on the door. Jake opened it, his eyes heavy with sleep. Doctor? It's 3 in the morning. Captain, Emma said, her voice trembling with anger and fear. This treaty, it's not what they said. It's not a partnership. It's a surrender document. Jake was suddenly very awake. What do you mean? Emma pushed past him into his room. She threw her computer onto his desk and pointed at the screen. Look, hidden in the language, there are clauses. They want our resources. All of them. They want our people for labor. They want our genetic material for their experiments. If we sign this, we become slaves. Within 1 generation, there would be nothing left of humanity. Nothing but what they allow us to keep. Jake stared at the screen. The words blurred before his eyes as he understood what Emma was telling him. Earth had not been invited to join a peaceful alliance. Earth had been targeted by predators. Predators who had done this before, many times before. We need to contact Earth Command, Jake said. His voice was hard now, like steel. We need to talk to Admiral Harris immediately. Emma nodded. What are we going to do? Jake looked out his window at the alien fleet hanging in the darkness. Thousands of ships, each one capable of destroying cities. And somewhere in that fleet, Ambassador Tylan was probably sleeping peacefully, certain that the primitive humans would sign their freedom away just like everyone else. I don't know yet, Jake said quietly, but I know one thing for certain. We are not signing that treaty. Whatever happens next, humanity will not go quietly into chains. Emma felt something strange in her heart. It was fear, yes, but it was also something else. Something that felt like fire. For the first time since the aliens arrived, she did not feel helpless. She felt angry. And anger, she was beginning to understand, might be the only weapon they had. The emergency meeting took place deep underground, in a bunker beneath the city of Geneva. Admiral Tom Harris had built this room for exactly this kind of situation. The walls were thick concrete. The doors were heavy steel. No signal could get in or out without permission. It was the most secure place on Earth. Around the long table sat the most powerful people in the world. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. They had all dropped everything and flown. Here within hours of receiving the message. Now they sat in silence, waiting. Secretary General Kate Wilson stood at the head of the table. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had led Earth's united government for 10 years. She had handled wars, disasters, and crises of every kind. But nothing like this. "Thank you all for coming," she said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could see the tension in her shoulders. "Dr. Cole, please tell us what you found." Emma Cole stood up. She had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red, and her hands were shaking slightly. But her voice was steady as she spoke. "The Standard Integration Treaty is a lie," she began. "On the surface, it looks like a fair agreement. Trade, technology sharing, cultural exchange. But hidden in the document are clauses that would destroy us." She pressed a button, and images appeared on the wall behind her. Text in both alien and human languages filled the screen. Section 847 gives the Council complete control over Earth's natural resources. Section 1203 requires us to provide yearly population contributions for labor and council space. Section 2445 allows them to collect human genetic material for research purposes without limit. Section 3012 establishes a debt system that can never be paid off. The room was completely silent. Emma continued, "If we sign this treaty, we would be slaves within 50 years. Our children would be born into bondage. Everything that makes us human would be taken from us piece by piece, all while we believe we are protected partners in a great civilization." A general in the corner spoke up. His face was red with anger. "How can they do this? How have they gotten away with it?" Lieutenant Mike Reeves stepped forward. He had been working on his own project while Emma translated the treaty. "I can answer that, sir. I intercepted and decoded some of their communications. The Council has done this to over 200 species. They always use the same method." He pressed another button. New images appeared on the screen. Alien species, dozens of different kinds, all shown working in mines and factories under armed guard. "They arrive with overwhelming force," Mike explained. "They offer a treaty that seems generous. Most species sign without reading the details. They are too grateful, too afraid, or simply too trusting. By the time they understand what they agreed to, it's too late. The Council has legal authority over them." "And those who refuse?" Kate Wilson asked quietly. Mike's face was grim. "Those who refuse are labeled hostile. The Council destroys them completely. They wipe out the planet, take what resources they want, and move on. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species has ever successfully rejected the Council." The room erupted in chaos. People shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others insisted they should sign the treaty to survive. Arguments broke out in every corner. Kate Wilson let them argue for exactly 2 minutes. Then she raised her hand. The room fell silent. "We have 2 choices before us," she said. "Sign and become slaves. Refuse and face destruction. Neither option is acceptable. So I ask you all, is there a third option?" Admiral Tom Harris stood up slowly. He was an old man with white hair and a face covered in scars from a lifetime of military service. When he spoke, everyone listened. "There is always a third option," he said. "We fight." More shouting. A politician from Europe jumped to his feet. "Fight? Are you insane? You saw those ships. They have thousands. We have barely 200. We would be destroyed in days." Tom Harris smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You're thinking like them. That's your first mistake. They expect us to count ships and compare numbers. They expect us to see that we're outgunned and surrender. Every other species has done exactly that." He walked to the screen and pointed at the images of the alien fleet. "But look at these ships. Really look at them. They're all the same. Standard designs. Standard weapons. Standard tactics. You know what that tells me? It tells me they haven't fought a real war in centuries. They've gotten soft. They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy who fights back. Jake Miller, who had been silent until now, stood up. The Admiral is right. I've studied their ships. They're designed for intimidation, not for real combat. They've never needed real combat. They show up, the other species surrender, and that's the end of it. But they could still destroy us. Someone protested. Yes, Jake agreed. They could. But they've never faced humans. They don't know us. They don't know our history. They don't know what we've survived. He walked to the center of the room. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but animal skins and stone tools. They survived plagues that killed half the population. They survived wars that burned entire continents. Every time, everyone thought humanity was finished. And every time, we found a way. Emma Cole spoke up. There's another factor. The other species in the council don't know what they signed. They trusted the council. They believed the lies. If we can show them the truth. Kate Wilson's eyes lit up with understanding. Information warfare. We don't just fight their ships. We fight their lies. Tom Harris nodded. If we can hold them off long enough, if we can spread the truth to the other species, we might be able to break the Council's grip on the galaxy. One rebellion might fail, but 100 rebellions at once? The room was quiet now. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of people thinking hard. A scientist from Asia raised their hand. We would need time. Time to build weapons. Time to spread information. Time to prepare. We have time, Mike Reeves said. The treaty gives us 30 days to sign. After that, they'll give us warnings, make threats, try to scare us into signing. If we refuse completely, they'll need to assemble a war fleet. Based on their communications, that would take at least 6 months. 6 months, Tom Harris repeated. 6 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. It's not much time, but it might be enough. Kate Wilson looked around the room. She saw fear in every face, but she also saw something else, something that looked like fire. We need a vote, she said. Everyone who believes we should sign the treaty and accept our fate. Raise your hand. No hands went up. Everyone who believes we should fight, no matter the cost. Raise your hand. Every hand in the room went up. Kate Wilson felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. Then it's decided. We reject the treaty. We prepare for war. And we pray that humanity's luck holds one more time. Admiral Harris was already moving toward the door. I have plans ready. Project Prometheus. We started preparing for something like this 20 years ago, when we first started exploring space. We always knew something was out there. We always knew it might not be friendly. What do you need? Kate asked. Everything, Tom replied. Every factory, every scientist, every soldier, every person on Earth who's willing to fight for their freedom. We're gonna need all of them. As the meeting ended, Jake Miller walked to the window. Through the thick glass, he could see the night sky. Somewhere up there, the alien fleet waited. Ambassador Tylan was probably confident that the primitive humans would come to their senses soon. Jake thought about all the species who had signed that treaty. All the beings who were now slaves because they trusted the wrong people. He thought about their children, born into chains, never knowing what freedom felt like. Not us, he whispered to the stars. Whatever happens, not us. Behind him, the leaders of Earth were already making calls, sending messages, beginning the work that might save humanity. The clock was ticking. 6 months to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of their entire species. It was not much time. But for humans, it would have to be enough. The 30 days passed quickly. Every day, Ambassador Thailand sent messages asking if humanity was ready to sign. Every day, Jake Miller sent polite replies asking for more time. He knew they were playing a dangerous game, but they needed every hour they could get. On the morning of the 30th day, Jake made an unusual request. He asked to speak directly with High Arbiter Velos, the supreme leader of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Thailand was shocked. "That is not possible," Thailand responded through his translator device. "The High Arbiter does not meet with primitive species. I am your contact. You will speak only with me." Jake smiled. "With respect, Ambassador, this is not a small matter. We are deciding the future of our entire species. We deserve to meet the person who will be responsible for that future." There was a long silence. Then Thailand spoke again. "I will ask, but the High Arbiter will refuse. No species has ever demanded such a meeting." "We are not every species," Jake replied. "We are humans." To everyone's surprise, High Arbiter Velos agreed to the meeting. Later, Jake would learn why. The alien leader was curious. In 3,000 years, no species had ever asked to see him directly. Most species were too terrified to even speak his name. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. Either way, Velos found them interesting. The meeting was set for the Great Chamber of the Council flagship, a massive ship called the Eternal Mandate. Jake selected a small team to go with him, Dr. Emma Cole to translate and advise, Lieutenant Mike Reeves to observe and record, and 4 armed soldiers because Jake was not stupid. The shuttle ride to the alien ship was silent. Emma watched Jake's face. He seemed calm, almost relaxed. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands gripped the armrests. "Are you scared?" she asked quietly. Jake thought about the question. "Yes, but I'm also angry. And right now, the anger is bigger than the fear." The docking bay of the Eternal Mandate was enormous. Alien ships of every size and shape filled the space. Creatures from dozens of different species walked past, some on 2 legs, some on 4, some floating through the air. Most of them looked at the humans with curiosity. A few looked at them with something like pity. Armed guards led them through long corridors decorated with strange art and glowing symbols. Finally, they reached a huge door made of some kind of crystal. It opened silently, revealing the council chamber. Jake had seen many impressive things in his life, but nothing compared to this. The chamber was massive, big enough to hold a small city. Seats rose up on every side, filled with aliens of every imaginable type. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat a single figure. High Arbiter Velos was different from Ambassador Thailand. He was larger, with darker skin and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. He wore robes of pure gold, and a crown of floating crystals circled his head. When he spoke, the whole room fell silent. "So, these are the humans." His voice was deep and powerful. "The primitive species that demands to see me personally. I must admit, I am curious. Tell me, Captain Miller, why should I spend my valuable time with creatures who will sign our treaty within the hour?" Jake stepped forward. His soldiers moved with him, hands on their weapons. The aliens in the crowd made sounds of surprise. No one had ever approached the High Arbiter without permission. "High Arbiter Velos," Jake said clearly, "I thank you for this meeting. Earth has carefully studied your standard integration treaty. We have translated every word. We have understood every clause." Velos leaned forward slightly. His glowing eyes narrowed, and Jake reached into his jacket. Guards around the room raised their weapons, but Jake did not pull out a gun. He pulled out a stack of paper. "The treaty, printed in human format, and this is our answer." He tore the paper in half. Then he tore it again, and again. Pieces of the treaty fell to the floor like snow. The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted and screamed. Some jumped from their seats. Velos raised his hand, and silence fell instantly. "What is this insult?" the High Arbiter demanded. His voice was like thunder. "No species has ever rejected the Council. You will explain yourself, human, or you will die where you stand." Emma Cole stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "Allow me to explain, High Arbiter. Your treaty contains hidden clauses. Clauses that would make humanity your slaves. Clauses that would steal our resources, our children, our very genetic material." She pulled out her own device and projected the text into the air. Section 847. Section 1203. Section 2445. Section 3012. Shall I continue? There are dozens more. The chamber was completely silent now. But not a surprised silence. A frightened silence. Emma looked around and realized something. The junior species in the crowd, the smaller aliens, the ones who had signed the treaty long ago. They were staring at the projected text with horror in their eyes. They had never known. They had trusted the Council, and they had never known what they agreed to. Councilor Morith, a large alien with blue skin and 4 arms, rose from his seat. "This is lies. Propaganda from primitive minds. The treaty protects all species equally. Then you won't mind if I send this translation to every species in the Council," Emma replied. "Let them read it for themselves. Let them decide if these are lies." Morith's face changed color. He looked at Velos, fear obvious in his expression. The High Arbiter's glow had dimmed. For the first time in centuries, he looked uncertain. "Enough," Velos said. "Captain Miller, your species has made a grave mistake. The Council has protected the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have brought peace and order to hundreds of worlds. If a few resources must be shared, if a few workers must be contributed, it is a small price for civilization." Jake shook his head. "That's not civilization. That's slavery with better marketing. We didn't survive everything we've survived just to become your cattle." Velos stood. He was even larger than Jake had realized, towering over the humans like a mountain. "Then you choose destruction. The Council will assemble a fleet. We will come to your little planet, and we will wipe your species from existence. Your cities will burn. Your people will die. Your world will be stripped bare. This is your last chance, human. Sign the treaty or face annihilation." Jake did not step back. He did not look away. He stared directly into those glowing alien eyes and spoke words that would echo through history. "You have conquered species who didn't know they were being conquered. You've bullied and cheated and lied your way across the galaxy. But you've never faced a species who saw you coming. You've never faced a species who would rather die than kneel." He pointed at the door. "Humanity declined your generous offer. Now get out of our solar system. And when you come back, bring your best, because you're going to need it." The silence stretched for an eternity. Then High Arbiter Velos began to laugh. It was a terrible sound, cold and cruel. Bold words from a dead species. "Enjoy your final months, human. When we return, there will be no mercy." Jake turned and walked toward the exit. His team followed. Behind them, the alien crowd parted like water. Some of them looked at the humans with fear. But some, Emma noticed, looked at them with something else. Hope. As they left the chamber, she heard whispers spreading through the crowd. The truth about the treaty was spreading. Seeds of doubt were being planted in minds that had trusted the Council for generations. Outside the chamber, Councilor Morith caught up to Velos. "High Arbiter, this is dangerous." The other species heard everything. If they begin to question the treaty, Velos silenced him with a look. Let them question. Let them whisper. In 6 months, the humans will be dead, and any thoughts of rebellion will die with them. This will be a lesson for the entire galaxy. He watched the human shuttle depart through the viewport. Such a small ship. Such a small species. In 6 months, they would be nothing but ashes and memory. But deep in his ancient heart, in a place he would never admit existed, High Arbiter Velos felt something he had not felt in centuries. A tiny seed of doubt. The humans had not begged. They had not cried. They had torn up his treaty and told him to leave. For the first time in 3,000 years, Velos wondered if he might have underestimated an enemy. He pushed the thought away. Impossible. They were primitives. They would be destroyed like all the others. But the doubt remained, small and cold, waiting to grow. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. By the time the human delegation returned to Earth, the truth about the Standard Integration Treaty was being whispered on 100 worlds. Dr. Emma Cole had made sure of that. Before leaving the council chamber, she had secretly broadcast her translation to every communication frequency she could find. On the planet Vila, workers in the mining colonies stopped their machines and read the message on their screens. For generations, they had believed they were partners in the council. Now they learned they were slaves on the ice world of Krath. Soldiers who had fought for the council looked at each other with new eyes. Their service had not been voluntary. Their sacrifice had not been honored. They had been used on a dozen other worlds. The same awakening happened. The lie that had held the galaxy together for 3,000 years was finally starting to crack. But High Arbiter Velos was not worried about rebellions. He was focused on one thing: destroying humanity. 3 days after Jake Miller tore up the treaty, the Council voted to declare Earth a Category 1 hostile species. This meant only one thing: total extinction. Velos assembled the largest fleet in Council history. 10,000 warships. Millions of soldiers. Weapons capable of burning entire continents. The fleet would take 6 months to reach Earth. By then, there would be nothing the humans could do, or so he believed. On Earth, those 6 months were the busiest in human history. Admiral Tom Harris activated Project Prometheus, a secret defense program that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Underground factories that had been silent for years suddenly roared to life. Scientists who had been working on theoretical weapons now built real ones. "We can't match their numbers," Tom explained to his officers. "So we won't try. We'll build something different. Something they've never seen." Human ships were redesigned from the ground up. The old models had been built for exploration and trade. The new ones were built for only one purpose: war. They were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than anything the Council had. They carried weapons that human scientists had been afraid to test. Until now, the weapons were only part of the plan. Emma Cole led a different kind of warfare. Information is a weapon too, she told her team. Maybe the most powerful weapon of all. She set up broadcast stations that sent messages across the galaxy. The truth about the treaty. Evidence of Council crimes. Stories from species who had suffered under Council rule. The messages were encrypted, hidden in regular communications. Impossible to block completely. And the messages found their audience. On the planet Myrol, a group of workers refused to load supplies onto a Council ship. When guards tried to force them, they fought back. 12 workers died, but the supplies never left the planet. On Velar, the mining machines broke down mysteriously. Every time they were fixed, they broke again. Production dropped by half, then by 3/4. Council officials were furious, but they could not find the saboteurs on Krath. A military commander quietly began hiding weapons and supplies. Just in case, These were small rebellions, quiet acts of resistance. But they added up, and they gave Emma hope. "Every rebellion we inspire is one less ship coming to Earth," she told Jake. "Every planet that resists is one less enemy we have to fight." Jake was less optimistic. He spent his days training crews, testing weapons, and preparing for a battle he was not sure they could win. The math was simple and terrifying. Even with all their new technology, Earth would have about 800 ships to face 10,000. They would be outnumbered more than 10 to 1. "We need something else," he told Admiral Harris. "Some advantage they won't expect." Tom smiled his grim smile. "I have a few ideas. Come with me." He led Jake deep underground, to a facility that did not officially exist. Inside, engineers were working on something that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. "We call it the Sunfire," Tom said. "A weapon based on solar energy, concentrated and focused. One shot can take out a ship the size of a city." "One shot," Jake repeated. "How many do we have?" 12. "We've been building them in secret for 20 years. The Council has nothing like them." Jake looked at the massive weapons. They were beautiful in a terrible way, all smooth metal and glowing energy cores. They represented humanity's best hope and worst fear at the same time. "What else?" he asked. Tom led him to another room. This one was filled with small drones, thousands of them, each no bigger than a human hand. Swarm weapons. They attach to enemy ships and eat through the hull. The Council ships are all built the same way. Same materials, same weaknesses. Our drones are designed to exploit those weaknesses. Jake picked up one of the tiny machines. It buzzed softly in his hand. "You've been planning this for a long time." "Since the first day we reached into space," Tom replied. "We always knew something was out there. We always knew it might not be friendly. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. That's the human way." 4 months passed. On Earth, every person who could hold a weapon was trained to use one. Every factory worked around the clock. Every scientist pushed themselves to the breaking point. The planet transformed itself into a fortress. Secretary Kate Wilson knew she had to tell the people the truth. She went on every broadcast channel, her face appearing on screens around the world. "My fellow humans," she said. Her voice was calm and strong. "You have heard the rumors. Now I will tell you the facts. An alien fleet is coming to destroy us. They will be here in 2 months. They have 10,000 ships. We have 800. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. "Some people would tell you to give up, to accept our fate, to sign away our freedom in exchange for survival. But I know humans better than that. I have seen what we can do when our backs are against the wall. I have seen us survive ice ages and plagues and wars. I have seen us climb out of every disaster stronger than before." Her eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. "I am asking for volunteers. Not to fight because you have to, but because you choose to. Because you believe that some things are worth dying for. Because you would rather stand on your feet than live on your knees. If you believe this, come forward. Help us defend our home." The response was overwhelming. Within 24 hours, every military recruitment center on Earth was surrounded by lines that stretched for miles. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Young people left their schools and jobs. Farmers put down their tools and picked up weapons. In every country, on every continent, people stepped forward. They came with fear in their hearts. But they came with fire too. On the Council flagship, High Arbiter Velos received reports of the rebellion spreading through his territory. A supply depot had been sabotaged. A communications array had been destroyed. 3 planetary governors had been assassinated by unknown attackers. Councilor Morath was terrified. "High Arbiter, the Empire is crumbling. We need to deal with these rebellions first. The humans can wait." Velo shook his head. The humans are the cause of this chaos. Once they are destroyed, the other species will lose hope. The rebellions will collapse. We stay on course. But alone in his chambers that night, Velo stared at the stars and wondered. The humans had only 800 ships. Yet they were not running. They were not begging. They were preparing to fight Dot in 3,000 years. No species had ever done that. They all recognized the hopelessness of their situation. They all surrendered. Why wouldn't these humans surrender? The answer came to him slowly, like a cold wind. Because they don't see it as hopeless. They think they can win. Velos laughed at the thought. Ridiculous. Impossible. They were primitives, but the doubt remained. And as the fleet grew closer to Earth, the doubt grew with it. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, and for a moment, even High Arbiter Velos felt impressed by the sight. 10,000 warships spread across the darkness like a wall of metal and death. Behind them, supply. Ships and troop carriers stretched for millions of miles. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Velos stood on the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, watching the tiny blue dot in the distance. Earth, home of the species that had dared to defy him. In a few days, it would be nothing but burning rock. Begin the advance, he commanded. Let them see what comes for them. The fleet moved forward like a slow tide. They expected to find a terrified planet, desperate humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found something else. Aye, Arbiter, a sensor officer called out, his voice confused. I'm detecting unusual activity in the asteroid belt. And around the larger planets, there are structures. Velos frowned. What kind of structures? The officer's face went pale. Weapons platforms, High Arbiter. Thousands of them. Hidden in the asteroids and moons. They were invisible until we got close. Before Velos could respond, the first shots came. From every direction, beams of light sliced through the darkness. Council ships exploded by the dozens. The asteroids had come alive with human weapons, turning the belt into a killing field. Return fire, Velos shouted. Destroy those platforms. The fleet tried to fight back, but the platforms were small and well hidden. For everyone they destroyed, 3 more appeared. The Council's standardized targeting systems could not track the fast-moving human weapons. They had never faced anything like this. And then the human fleet arrived. Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the chaos ahead. His 800 ships were nothing compared to the Council Armada. But they did not need to match the enemy ship for ship. They needed to fight differently. All wings. Begin attack pattern Omega, he ordered. Remember what we practiced. Speed and chaos. Never stop moving. Never fight fair. The human ships dove into battle like a swarm of angry bees. They were smaller and faster than Council vessels, designed to slip through enemy formations and strike at weak points. Council gunners tried to track them, but the humans never flew in straight lines. They spun and twisted and turned in ways that seemed impossible. Lieutenant Mike Reeves led a wing of 30 ships directly at a Council destroyer 10 times their size. Target their engines, he called, like we practiced. His ships released their swarm drones. Thousands of tiny machines flew toward the destroyer, so small that the defense systems could not target them. They attached to the hull and began eating through the metal. Within minutes, the destroyer's engines exploded. The giant ship spun out of control and crashed into 2 others nearby. 3 for the price of 1, Mike reported, moving to next target. Across the battlefield, the same scenes played out again and again. Human ships fought in ways the Council had never seen. They rammed enemy vessels when necessary, crews ejecting at the last second. They hid behind debris and attacked from unexpected angles. They used every dirty trick that human military history had ever invented. But it was not enough. The Council had too many ships. For every one they destroyed, 5 more took its place. Human casualties mounted. Ships disappeared from Jake's screen one by one. Friends he had known for years, gone in flashes of light. "We're losing," Emma said quietly beside him. She had insisted on being on the Defiant for the final battle. "We're taking down 10 of them for every one of us, but we're still losing." Jake nodded. He had known this moment would come. The moment when numbers finally won. The moment when human courage hit the wall of mathematical reality. "Time for Phase 2, he said. "Signal the Sunfire platforms." Deep in the solar system, 12 massive weapons came online. They had been hiding in the corona of the sun itself, powered by its endless energy. Now they aimed at the heart of the Council fleet. The first beam hit the Eternal Mandate's formation, vaporizing 50 ships in a single instant. The second beam cut through a line of destroyers like a hot knife through butter. The Council fleet, scattered in panic, their orderly formations dissolving into chaos. On the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, alarm screamed. Velos grabbed a railing to keep from falling. "What is that? What are they hitting us with?" "Unknown weapon, High Arbiter." An officer shouted. "Power levels beyond anything in our database." Velos stared at the screen, watching his beautiful fleet come apart. This was impossible. These were primitives. They should not have weapons like this. They should not be fighting like this. They should be dying quietly, like every other species. "Retreat!" Councilor Morath screamed. "We must retreat." "No!" Velos grabbed Morath and threw him to the floor. "We do not retreat. We have never retreated. All ships, focus fire on Earth itself. Burn their planet." A group of Council ships broke through the battle and headed for Earth. Their weapons charged, ready to turn cities into glass. But human ships moved to intercept. One by one, they placed themselves between the enemy and their home. Outnumbered and outgunned, they fought to the last. Jake watched his fleet sacrifice itself to protect Earth. Every death felt like a knife in his heart. But he had one more mission to complete. "Take us to the Eternal Mandate," he ordered. Full speed. The Defiant shot forward, weaving through the chaos of battle. Enemy fire scorched their hull. Systems failed. Crew members fell. But Jake pushed on. "Sir, we're taking heavy damage," his pilot reported. "We won't survive another direct hit. We only need to survive long enough to reach them," Jake replied. "Prepare for boarding." The Defiant crashed into the side of the Eternal Mandate, its armored nose punching through the alien hull. Emergency. Seals activated, creating a tunnel between the two ships. Jake grabbed his weapon and led his Marines into the enemy vessel. They fought through corridors filled with alien soldiers. Jake had never felt so tired, so scared, so alive. Every step forward cost blood, but they kept moving. They had to reach the bridge. When they finally broke through the last door, Jake found High Arbiter Velos waiting for him. The alien leader stood alone in the center of his ruined bridge. His golden robes were torn. His crown of crystals had fallen, but his eyes still glowed with ancient power. "So," Velos said, "the primitive comes to face me himself. Brave, stupid, but brave." Jake raised his weapon. "It's over, Velos. Your fleet is broken. Your empire is falling apart. Surrender, and maybe some of your people will survive." Velos laughed, but there was no joy in it. "You think you have won? You have destroyed ships. You have killed soldiers. But the Council has ruled for 3,000 years. We will rebuild. We will return. And next time, we will not underestimate you." "There won't be a next time," Jake said. "Look outside." Velos turned to the viewport. What he saw made his glow flicker and dim. The human sunfire weapons were charging again. And this time, they were aimed at his ship. But that was not what made him stop. What made him stop was the other ships. Not human ships, council ships. Vessels from a dozen different species, turning their weapons against their former masters. The rebellions, Velos whispered. They came. Emma had been right. Her messages had found their audience. Species that had been slaves for generations had finally found the courage to fight back. When they saw the humans standing against the council, when they saw that victory was possible, they rose up. And they came to help. You conquered through lies and fear, Jake said. But you can't fight truth, and you can't fight hope. Velos was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, almost curious. Why? He asked. Why did you fight? You knew you would probably lose. You knew your species might die. Why not simply accept the treaty and survive? Jake lowered his weapon slightly. Because survival isn't the same as living. We would rather die free than live as slaves. That's something you'll never understand. Velos stared at him. In those ancient glowing eyes, something changed. Not defeat, exactly. But maybe the beginning of understanding. Perhaps, Velos said softly, perhaps we forgot what we were fighting against all those centuries ago. Perhaps we became the very thing we once opposed. He turned away from Jake and looked out at the stars. His fleet was scattering. His empire was crumbling. 3,000 years of dominion, ending in a single day. We surrender, the High Arbiter said. The Council surrenders. For the first time in our history, Jake felt his legs shake. He had to grab a console to stay standing. They had won. Against all odds, against all logic, humanity had won. 1 year later, Secretary Kate Wilson stood before a gathering unlike any in history. Representatives from 50 species filled the hall. Species that had been slaves. Species that had been enemies. Species that had found the courage to be free. We did not seek this war, Kate said. We did not ask to challenge the council. But when we were given a choice between freedom and chains, we chose freedom. And we discovered that we were not alone. She looked at the diverse faces before her. Blue skin, green scales, fur and feathers and things she could not name. All of them looking back at her with hope. Today, we do not form another empire. We do not ask anyone to kneel. Instead, we offer something simple. Partnership. Equals standing beside equals. A coalition of free species, defending each other's right to choose their own future.